we really need minerals because minerals activate all the enzymatic pathways in the body, all of them. And it's been said that without minerals, vitamins are useless because of that reason, because they activate those enzymatic pathways.
I am a woman on a mission that is dedicated to teaching you just how powerful your body was built to be. I like to do that by bringing you the latest science, the greatest thought leaders, and applicable steps that help you tap into your own internal healing power. The purpose of this podcast is to give you the power back and help you believe in yourself again. My name is Dr. Mindy Pelz, and I want to thank you for spending part of your day with me. Okay, resetters, on this episode, we are going to dive into minerals. So, let me tell you, if there is one thing I've learned from fasting hundreds of thousands of people over the years, is that we as a human race are deficient in minerals. But here's the real challenge, is that it looks different. A mineral deficiency looks different for each one of us. And so I am bringing you in this episode, Barton Scott. He is the CEO of Upgraded Formulas. His company specializes in minerals. You will hear in the episode, I have personal experience with his products. I've seen some tremendous change with my HRV and with my sleep using some of his products. And so I was so curious to know more about which minerals are associated with which conditions and how we can supplement with them, what activities can we avoid so we don't deplete more minerals, and how we can use minerals to really bring our health to another level. So Barton Scott, you're going to hear there's a lot of what my husband likes to call nuance. There's a lot of detail. There's a lot of things we need to know about minerals other than just go and pop some minerals. We need to understand which minerals we might be deficient in. So in this episode, we talk a lot about hormones, of course. We talk about fatigue and minerals. We talk about thyroid and minerals. And we dive into magnesium, manganese. That was a new one for me. Potassium, iodine. We talk about zinc and zinc's effect on hormones. And it'll elevate your thoughts around what we need to just function normally as a human. So really excited to bring this episode to you, Barton Scott. And as always, if you love what you're hearing here, leave us a review, share it out into the world. My podcast stands for creating a new paradigm around health. And when we talk about something like minerals, we really are changing the conversation around disease and dysfunction and giving the power back to you. Enjoy. Let's talk about how to properly break your fast. So let me just give you a little behind the scenes of what happens to me in a day. I typically break my fast around 2 p.m. And before I started fasting, that was a really common time for me to have a dip in energy. So I started to notice as I applied a fasting lifestyle that what I broke my fast with at 2 p.m. would determine if I had the energy to go the rest of the afternoon or if it actually caused me to be more sleepy. So I've learned that I actually like breaking my fast with something liquid. And my new favorite trick to breaking a fast is with 2 of Organifi's products. The first, and the one that gives me the most energy, is Organifi Red Juice. So not only is it incredibly yummy and is exciting to break your fast with, but it gives me that extra boost that I need to be very productive throughout the rest of the day. The second one that I often will break my fast with is their green juice. Also an incredible product, gives me energy, fills me up, and many times, I'll let you know a little trick, I actually combine the 2 together. So check out Organifi's products. I love them as this incredible tool for breaking your fast. And the cool thing about Organifi is not only are their products organic and natural ingredients and free from toxicity, but they're going to give you 20% off when you use the link Pelz. So let me show you how you do this. You go to Organifi.com/Pelz/ And I'm going to spell that for you. It is organifi.com/Pelz, Pelz. So go check out Organifi's products. Try the red juice, try the green juice, try mixing them together, try breaking a fast with it. And then as always, let me know how it works for you. My productivity has literally been through the roof, and I am so grateful to have this as a resource to break my fast. Enjoy. But I just want to start with like that idea of why is everybody mineral deficient?
Such a good question. Well, our world is more toxic than it's ever been. Some estimates say 1,000 times more toxic, the air we're breathing, than not that long ago, like prior to the Industrial Revolution. So our genes haven't caught up to that. And the soil is 30 to 40% more deficient just in the last 60 to 80 years. And we're not eating 30 to 40% more. And even if we were, that would just be more that the body would have to get rid of. So there's a lot there.
So would it be fair to say that pretty much every human is mineral deficient?
Yes, it would. I don't like to quote the CDC much, but even their estimates, because they're so conservative, they say 96% of people have at least one deficiency that is holding them back in their health. So
crazy.
Yeah. And something like 90% have 8 or more.
More.
Yeah. So it's, I think that's fairly conservative as well. However, it's all about understanding the priority of these things and not trying to fix all of them at once, but it's understanding a sequence that the body cares about most and doing it in that sequence, and also respect to heavy metals and a lot of good stuff, and it influences everything in the body.
So just taking minerals, what I hear is not that you can't just pop a multi-mineral that you find at Walgreens. Like you have to that's not the answer. That there is a system to taking minerals. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, that's what I've realized for myself and for all the people we've worked with at Upgraded. And wow, I mean, it's such a profound difference when it starts to click for people. And so for some people, it clicks sooner than others because of the other limiting factors in their body, like heavy metals. If someone has a huge toxic load of heavy metals, then that's a key part that we're working with as well.
Yeah, just so we can pull our listeners up to speed. Why do we even need minerals? I think this is there's a massive gap in information on why we would even need minerals. And it's not until we have a condition that we start to look at that. So what do minerals do in our body?
Yeah, so we really need minerals because minerals activate all the enzymatic pathways in the body, all of them. And it's been said that without minerals, vitamins are useless because of that reason, because they activate those enzymatic pathways. What I've found when fasting is that I can fast nearly without pain if I have knowledge of the minerals I'm low in, and then I'm supporting my glands. So I'm supporting my thyroid function, I'm supporting my adrenals, and being able to do extended fast is just so much easier that way. And of course, they're not going to break the fast.
Yeah.
So that's been something I've learned as I've done some pretty long fasts. Yeah.
Is it easy? Is it easier because you're not hungry, or you just don't have as many symptoms?
I think it's easier because I focus better, and also yes, the hunger there is a part of it. But I would say the easiest part is just you're keeping your adrenals nourished, so you're getting more momentum. Because I did I don't think you and I had talked about this before, but I'd done an 11-day fast in part because I wanted to heal an injury that I had. Like I was running and I had a partial pull in my hamstring. So I wanted the free stem cells that come out day 4, day 5 to start healing. And,
good job.
And it worked. It absolutely worked. And I could have gone longer, but I thought, all right, let me try to get at least 5 days in. I felt better and better. So I just kept going, and I got to day 7, and just intuitively, I felt like my body still wasn't done cleaning itself. So I kept going, either cleaning or healing, and is how it sort of came through for me. And so I just let it keep going, and that worked. I dropped quite a bit of body fat, and I was taking our minerals throughout the process and supporting the adrenals with those, thyroid, some others in general around blood sugar, and keeping that stabilized, taking our magnesium to keep the, adrenaline and cortisol from spiking, and kind of like pushing you toward solving that through food, or, all
I love that.
The temptation, right? So.
Yeah, I healed a Achilles tendon injury with a 5-day water fast.
Wow.
I tried everything and I was finally like, I'm just going to fast and see what happens. And it was gone. Like it never came back, never had a problem again. It was crazy how the body heals like that. Is insane. So
good.
Right?
Story.
Yeah. What minerals are you seeing are the most deficient in people?
There's the common ones that we hear about, like magnesium and potassium. Potassium is probably the highest, 98%, but also iodine is way, way up there. And the manganese. A lot of people think I'm saying magnesium. I know probably a lot of your audience knows or has heard of manganese, but most people aren't really clear on what it does. And, it's key for actually building the structures in our minds, in our brains of memory, like for creating those neural pathways, as well as, phosphorus is as well. Although that one's in pretty good supply for people that eat enough protein, particularly from animal sources. That's where you find your best sources of phosphorus. What else? Those are some big ones for sure. And then it just depends on the person's biochemical makeup at this time, right? Based on what they've been eating, what their lifestyle is. Have they just recently run, or been training for a half marathon, or some race, or working really hard, or just going through a lot of life stress. All these different things, right, can increase our burn rate of minerals. Maybe they've taken, focus medication that's really depletive on the body, like we've talked about. So Adderall, modafinil, Vyvanse, any of these things can really be difficult. And the interesting thing is that these deficiencies, and they really start to lead to personality over time. Because they lead to habit almost immediately, and then habit becomes personality. So it's super interesting. I think there's a lot in relationships as well, around that, and then the intersection of that with hormones. It's all very fascinating.
What do you think the biggest depleter outside of our soils? You talked about working out, medications. Like, is there one thing? The soil issue is huge. And as the human race, we've got to solve that. We've got to go back to regenerative agriculture. It's ridiculous. So, but outside of that, that's a long-term problem we're going to have to solve as a collective group of people. But what can we do on an individual level? Like, if we know we're on Adderall, if we know we're an extreme, running a marathon, like, are there certain activities that you're like, these are the top 5 things that are going to deplete your mineral stores?
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely working out. What caused this, and what made me have to jump into this as a chemical engineer and nutritionist later on, was I had accumulated so many deficiencies from being a wrestler. I played other sports like football, and you sweat a lot in those sports too, track. But with wrestling, you're minimizing what you're eating, you're maximizing your output. And of course, that's a recipe for hypothyroidism, just self-induced. That's a recipe for nutrient deficiencies, because there's no way you're going to recoup that, roughly 5,000 milligrams of potassium every day that we all need, and that is a huge struggle to get anyway. So I would say extreme exertion. This is why, which really leads to The reason why you'll see an athlete get sick and you're like, wow, they're like 22. I don't understand like how they're like 22, they're ripped, they have no body fat, they're young, they're just all the thing, and yet they'll get sick. This is why. This is absolutely why. It's because we're just the same nutrient deficiency pattern as someone in their 80s that's unhealthy. I mean, there are healthy 80-year-olds that don't have nutrient deficiency like that. So that's one. And then quite literally the other, really, in my experience, is either drugs or medication. And I put those in a pretty similar category because they're so similar. Vyvanse is similar to I mean, it's methamphetamine. So is Adderall, and we get it's incredibly easy to get prescribed those things. And that was one thing that I say it all the time is the worst nutritional mistake I ever made. So I want people to know that and understand they have a very clear path to fixing their focus. I think anxiety, it goes hand in hand with that lack of focus, and anxiety increases that burn rate when we're just sitting at our desk. Where what I say often is we're redlining at our desk, right? A lot of people they're like redlining about the email or the thing they need to do or any number of things. So they have this background anxiety, which leads to a lack of focus. Then they feel like they're out of options. So instead of either working with minerals and testing, and then nootropics that are herbs that are so much more conducive to long-term health than a medication that's going to push you really, really hard to jack up your cortisol or to just work on so many different systems in the body in a really intense way. So those, and then, I put alcohol in that same category, too much coffee in that same category. So like a little bit, fine, a lot, obviously super depletive. Those are the things that come up first. And then, I would say stress is attached to all of those as well. So
I feel like that's like the whole human race. I mean, you've got like people stressed, they're not eating they're not getting minerals in their food anymore because of the monocropping. And for those of you guys listening, if you're not familiar with that, go watch the documentary Kiss the Ground. It's a great example of what's going on in our farming system. We've got, people sweating a lot, especially some of the athletes. You've got people on, medications left and right. And so can everybody just assume they have a mineral deficiency?
Yeah, they really can, because it's such a balance, right? It's such we're just constantly using these things. This is what our whole planet is made of. Like you're talking about with regenerative agriculture, it's what our soil is made up of. It's that periodic table. And it really surprises me that it's not more common, like what I'm teaching around hair testing, the depth of the things you can learn from it, like adrenal and thyroid function and metabolism and hormones and all sorts of stuff. And that we somehow, I don't know, we somehow think that, or we don't think about it, but we somehow think, for lack of a better phrase, that we can get by without testing this periodic table that we're made of.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's the fundamental principles. Like all last year, I walked around thinking, God, if we just got everybody amped up on vitamin D, everybody's immune system would be stronger. We'd be out of this situation. And what I'm hearing from you is I'm like, especially when we dive into anxiety and depression, like if we just had everybody understand their mineral balance, like those are big symptoms. And we haven't even talked yet about thyroid and adrenal, but those are big issues that are killing people's lifestyle. Yet something as simple as a mineral is not being talked about. Why do you think that is? Is that lack of education?
I guess so. I think because minerals they don't give you the same effect that drinking a cup of coffee does.
Yeah.
so it doesn't keep us coming back to it, right? They're not chemically addictive.
Well said.
They're chemically needed, but if it had any of the properties of tobacco or alcohol or coffee, then we'd be all over it, I'm sure.
You got to be addicted. It's got to have an addictive point to it.
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of major hook.
Yeah.
Well said. And I think that's why, I don't think I've ever said that before, but that is true. And that is why I think people love our magnesium, is because they take it and they feel it. They really feel it. They sleep better.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why, all of our minerals have our key technology that I developed back in 2016 after realizing most minerals do not absorb. And I was losing my short-term memory, and having a bunch of issues with brain fog. And God, it was just, it was miserable. It was frightening. It was terrifying. It was easily the worst period of my life. And, losing someone that I cared about, watching her health go downhill, watching surgery after surgery, and knowing that there had to be some other way, because medications seemed to make her worse and worse. She had organs removed, like thymus gland removed, and just watching this, this is my mother, and she had gone from very vivacious, one of the most intelligent people I'd ever known, could like sit with anyone in the world and have a in-depth conversation, to just a lackluster life. And I just remember feeling heartbroken, not only for me, but for her and for all the people that she impacted, and thinking, this is so clearly not working. And she had great access to all the best of quote unquote modern healthcare, with its drugs and pharmaceuticals. And I remember thinking, and I was born to older parents. I knew a lot of this would probably come up at some point earlier in my life, and for most people. And so I think from an early age, I was always thinking about longevity. I was thinking about anti-aging. I was thinking about, for my own self, just knowing I wanted to really contribute to the world in a very powerful, clear way. Didn't know what that looked like yet, but I knew, I just felt like I was going to have mission after mission in life.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
That's why we donate to Charity Water. A portion of all proceeds go to them. We need to fix the soil, like you talked about. We need to get everyone clean water, like drill some pretty sustainable water wells, teach people in the community how to do it. It's very cost effective. Anyway, I could go on.
Yeah, amen. I hear you on that. And every day, the more I research, the more heartbroken I am that the human body is not thriving in this modern world. And there are so many things like depression, anxiety, thyroid, adrenal, fatigue, weight loss resistant, hormone imbalance. You go on and on and on. And people are not aware that what we're living in, the food we're eating, the water we're drinking, the stress we're under, we could name a bazillion things, is depleting us of just naturally feeling good. And then we have a healthcare system where we go and we try to medicate those symptoms, which causes more depletion. Mm-hmm. And it just breaks my heart. We have to change this paradigm. The paradigm is not working. Mm-hmm. So I'm 100% with you on that. And I love that you guys give back to charity and that you're on a mission. That is incredible.
Yeah, I love the idea of being able to colonize other planets. We should probably work.
You should talk to my husband. My husband and son are ready to go to Mars.
Yeah, I get it. It's a big dream. It's beautiful. It's just like when we went to the moon, it's inspiring. And if I feel like we should certainly solve the problems here first.
Yeah, perhaps.
We can work it on both, I suppose, at the same time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I talked to a guy, Dr. Emran Mayer. He wrote a Gut Immune Connection. And he said, if we're going to go to Mars, we've got to take some bacteria with us. We're going to need to bring the microbiome with us as well. So, and we've destroyed the microbiome here and everything. So I thought that was a funny slant. So talk to me about magnesium. So I just want to, just so our listeners know, we met at a seminar a couple months ago. You gave me a bottle of the magnesium. I'm always looking for sleep as a menopausal woman. I used to sleep great at 31, at 51. I really have to have a lot of hacks to make sure that I sleep well. I took that magnesium, not really knowing what I was doing. I just was like, okay, let me take 2 before I go to bed. I woke up the next morning and my Whoop was registering. It was like the recovery was insane. It was like almost 100%. My HRV had gone up. So then I'm like, okay, maybe I just had a restful night. So I repeated it through the whole bottle, and that I had the same result. And then I ran out of the bottle and my HRV went down. My recovery went down. What the heck happened? Explain to me why magnesium helps so much with sleep and HRV, which is really important measurement.
Yeah, so such good questions. It helps with sleep because it's converting into melatonin. It's one of the key constituents of melatonin, right? So that helps us rest and really get in there and get that deep restorative sleep. So yeah, I'll track mine on my Oura Ring, and I love it when people say what you just said, and they send me screenshots of their tracking device, just friends and other friends and whatnot. So and it's just so many people were like, oh, if I could just fix sleep, I'd be so set. And that's why the HRV improves is just because we're really rested. So so the heart's able to deeply relax and really slow down and get that off rhythm beat that it's supposed to have. And yeah, I mean, we start to turn down inflammation. We start to really flip many switches in our genes that are really positive, from an epigenetic standpoint. And, it just leads to this positive thing where we wake up and now we're more focused, more clear. And then what happens? Well, then maybe we meditate and we wouldn't have otherwise, or we go for a walk and we wouldn't have otherwise. And either one of those things or both of those things lead to more focus, more achievement, more peace of mind, more. So it really begins and ends with sleep, I think, for me. So that's the first product that I worked on and put out that has our proprietary absorption method. And that's why it works so well. And we bind it with chloride, so it's not normal magnesium chloride by any means.
It was amazing. And I also love that I could see it on my Whoop, because I always say, is it the placebo effect? Did I think I was going to sleep better? So then I slept better. But when you actually see, we've been tracking so much on the Whoop, and we have people use the Oura as well. And it was proof right there. It was so cool. So,
great. I'm so glad you shared that.
And Jessica's husband, who's an extreme athlete, he's in his 30s, had the same experience. So, he was like coming in with his Whoop, like, what was that thing that you got at the seminar? Like, this thing was incredible. So he's probably from so much sweating, maybe mineral deficient or magnesium deficient. Magnesium,
potassium. And then, the other thing too, to even answer, to add to that on why magnesium is so important, calcium to magnesium is such a key ratio. So when your magnesium is low, your calcium effectively is high. And that leads to just any number of issues, whether it's thyroid, parathyroid, just hormone issues, stiffness in joints, maybe the calcium channel staying open, calcium ion channel staying open too long in the brain, which, can actually be a real issue with people taking too much vitamin D. So here's what I do without saying should. When I take magnesium or when I take vitamin D, I take it with magnesium because vitamin D causes calcium absorption. And then we want that ratio, one of the more important ratios in the body of calcium to magnesium, to be ideal.
Okay. One of the things that I've noticed in fasting hundreds of thousands of people is that we as a human race are incredibly mineral deficient. And a large part of that is coming because our soils, the food that our soils are growing in, are incredibly depleted, especially here in America, but throughout the world, we're seeing that soils are not having the same mineral-rich content that they did years ago. We also know that if you're an athlete and you sweat a lot, that you're going to deplete your minerals. If you've been using any kind of drugs or alcohol, that they deplete minerals. And minerals are really strange because they have this subtle yet powerful effect on our brain and our body. So things like depression and anxiety have been linked to mineral deficiencies. Not being able to sleep can be linked to a mineral deficiency. So in fasting hundreds of thousands of people, I've really noticed that the world is mineral deficient, which is why I am constantly looking for mineral resources. And Element has done an incredible job with their products. So if you're not familiar with Element, they are a mineral packet. You can put it in your water as you're going throughout your day. They will keep you in a fasted state. And they have really yummy flavors. The new ones that I'm pretty excited about are watermelon and grapefruit. But a house favorite is the berry, the citrus salt, and the lime. So check out Element. If you go to Drink Element, so let me spell it for you because it's a little tricky play on words. I actually say Elementi or Element, depending on how you want to say it. So their website is Drink Element. So DRINKLMNT.com/Mindy Pelz. And if you go, we'll also leave the link in the notes below. But if you go and you check out their website, they will give you a discount, and let me know what your favorite flavor is. So talk to me about thyroid, because this is another one. And I want to talk about thyroid and iodine specifically, because I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on iodine. I've heard, you shouldn't take it. You should take it. You got to be careful how you take it. So what is it that we need? Is that the key nutrient for thyroid function is iodine? And how would we know we're deficient in it? How do we know how much to take?
It's a great question. To take those kind of piece by piece, iodine's recommended daily allowance, in my opinion, is incredibly low at 150 micrograms. I say that in part because after looking at the diet in Japan quite a bit, I found that like for every mineral and also the macros that they're eating. So they're way, if we could swap health with any other developed country, we would want to do that, both health, longevity, for sure. I mean, they're
Japan?
They're so far ahead of us, right?
That's interesting.
So longevity, health, all these different things. And, some of that's mindset and culture and things, but a lot of it is diet. And they're consuming about 100 times more iodine per day than we are.
Interesting.
So I'm not saying that that's the only thing, because it obviously isn't the only thing, of course. And it's really important. And there's just no way you can run your thyroid off of 150 micrograms a day. Even if someone has Hashimoto's, you still need your thyroid to function for obvious reasons. So I'll just address that straight out of the gate. My opinion from looking at everything I've seen is that you still need iodine because you still want that gland producing hormones. Now, is it going to produce hormones without the key minerals that it needs? No, it's not. And to the extent it doesn't have those key minerals, it will not produce, it will ratchet down its production. So there's a lot there. Iodine is key. I created something a couple of years ago called Peak Thyroid, PEAK. And that is a blend of 4 minerals the thyroid really needs. In addition to those 4 minerals, manganese and magnesium are both, I was going to say magnesium first, but they're both key, from either the conversion of the hormones from inactive to active, or the signaling throughout the HPA axis. So there's a lot there. There's not, unfortunately, iodine's in such a small amount in the body, and just its chemical properties are such that it's not possible to test for accurately currently. We used to try to test for it in hair, and granted, you can still buy a test for it with blood, but will it be accurate? No, there's no accuracy to any way to test for iodine currently. Unfortunately,
can I get iodine through salt?
No, it's not enough of a dose. So iodized salt's not great. I'm so glad you asked that, right? Because it's looking at like 9 milligrams per like a huge dose of salt that would, so that, and then that's only going to be really found through salt that's had iodine added to it. You'll of course get trace minerals in your either, I like Hawaiian salt or Celtic salt or Himalayan salt. Though you'll get your trace minerals in there. But when you look at the diets that either you or I or like from a macro perspective or coaching people with, they're great. And overall, I really believe they're fantastic, and they're low. Those foods are low in iodine, or they're completely deficient in iodine, which is typically the case. And part of that soil, part of that is just those foods have very low iodine levels. Japan has so much more because they're eating so many sea vegetables. And the thing of there is some of those sea vegetables have moderate to high levels of heavy metals. So,
I was just going to say thallium. I mean, we test heavy metals a lot, and thallium, it comes out in everybody. And when I researched it, nuclear fallout in water, and we've got an issue. So my daughter is obsessed with seaweed. She's always been obsessed with it. And I've wondered if there was like a deficiency that she's had, that she's been trying to get it. And, on one hand, you're like, well, seaweed, that's awesome. You should let her, eat it. And then I think, I don't know where it comes from. It's like, that's sort of a scary path to try to get it from seaweed, I would think.
Right. I've heard that kelp is better, but, for just some reason, like where it's grown, how it's harvested, something like that. But the specific there, I don't remember. But this is the reason why we put a fairly large dose in our iodine. That and it's one of our few products that has a really neutral taste. Like all of our products.
Oh yeah,
should be
minerals
in water.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not as tasty as coffee. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I noticed the magnesium was kind of salty, the little tablets when I took them, but I liked that. I mean, I'm a salt lover, but I was like, there's something different here. Why do these taste salty? I've taken magnesium for a long time. There's something different here because none of the other ones I've taken have tasted salty. Yeah. So, now in talking to you, I hear that there's a thoroughness in how you put your formulas together. That is why so many people are seeing such great results with it. So would it be fair to say that anybody who has a thyroid problem has an iodine deficiency?
I would say so. Yes, I would say, unless they have an overactive thyroid, of course, where they're, producing too many hormones. I think even quote unquote hyperactive thyroid is typically intermittent with low and high.
Right.
Right. So it's spitting and sputtering. So there may be, a ratio there that's really out of whack. So some of the key minerals that we have that have found that are key for thyroid that I put in peak thyroid are zinc and copper, as well as selenium, as well as iodine. And then for people that want even more iodine, they can take our iodine supplement. We put a little bit in our upgraded memory supplement as well. I mean, it's key for brain function. So I would say even someone that is hyperthyroid, you still want them to have, like the minimal amount, like 300 micrograms is what we put in upgraded memory. I worked on that for a couple of different years. It's been out for about a year and a half now. And I would say that you want a baseline of that, and then you want to adjust the other minerals in your body to smooth out your overproduction of that hormone. So, you probably also want to strengthen your adrenals and provide the key minerals that support adrenals. So, those are different things.
Can you overdo minerals? Like, this is a question we get with vitamin D a lot. They're like, can you overdo it? And my answer usually is you can, but we're so vitamin D deficient that let's start by just getting you in a normal range. And then there's a point at which you can stop the supplementation. Do you feel like it's the same with minerals? Like it's really hard to overdo because we're so deficient.
That's such a great question. So there are certain minerals that are easier to overdo than others. So like soon we'll have depending on when this airs, our upgraded iron will be out, and people can be deficient in that. But it's easier to recover sometimes a iron deficiency than it is to recover either iodine deficiency. That can take a long time. But you'll notice that you'll have cold hands and feet, for example, if you have iodine deficiency, or have other symptoms of low thyroid, and those symptoms will start to go away. You'll become like, if you just cringe at the thought of an ice bath or jumping in cold water, then you probably have iodine deficiency.
Yes. Yep. That's me. That's the one biohack. I'm like, I should do it, but I cringe.
It's tough. I mean, it really is. Right. And I was that way too, a couple of years ago. For me, it took somewhere between like 9 and 11 months of me dosing iodine pretty heavily. I was doing our dose, which is 5 milligrams a day. Of course, it's in a dropper. So people, if they want just a really small amount, they can also do that.
Right.
And then they can start off maybe higher. They can drop back down. They can just, sort of intuit that part with their hypothyroid symptoms. And this is for anyone that is, not necessarily diagnosed hypothyroid, because it's kind of difficult to be diagnosed hypothyroid if you go to a traditional medical
well
practitioner,
said.
right? Because you'll be middle of the range, because that range was based on what? An unhealthy population.
Yes.
So, right.
So well said. And such a good point. They're only looking at TSH, and it's a baseline of a lot of unhealthy people. So that is such a good point.
Thank you.
What about fatigue? That's something. What are the minerals we're missing? A lot of people are dealing with just extreme fatigue. And when I say fatigue, it's like not just getting enough energy throughout the day, but what about like when you work out and you're just like struggling to do a normal workout that you didn't struggle with before?
Oh God, this is such a good question. Okay, so most people are going to need these 4, right? And again, my whole issue was I was taking the minerals intuitively when I had all the brain focus, just the brain fog, the focus issues, all these things. So absorption's key. So that being said, so like magnesium again, potassium again for sure, and then salt and phosphorus. Those are the 4 that come to mind first. And then it just depends on someone's levels. Like maybe their zinc as well. So their testosterone, their progesterone, either male or female, is regulated in the body by zinc. It's supported. It's
interesting.
Key. There's a key connection there, right? And like so few people know this. It's so key. So yeah, I love, you and I could teach a masterclass on this sometime because people need to know this.
Yeah.
And I can go on and on about all of these things in depth, but zinc is key for that part, the balance between that and copper. We could talk about that later if you want, as it relates to hormones. But, potassium for muscle contraction and adrenal support, magnesium for the muscles that need to relax, the nervous system that needs to relax. So you can recover, after that workout, even between sets, drop in the parasympathetic. Phosphorus is something I think about a lot. I actually put out a large dose manganese supplement too, because that RDA is so low, and I've seen everyone be deficient in it, or not everyone, but I can't say everyone, but almost everyone be low in it. Manganese helps with recovery. So like recovery after workout. So like your I think triathlete friend or something you were mentioning. I think is a guy. So he would be
Spartan racer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So like anyone like that, recovering, bouncing back from a workout and feeling, okay, so I worked out yesterday, I'm ready to go again today. That's key. Magnesium is key for that too. Phosphorus as well, just because it's going to help the utilization of protein. It's key for that. That's why it's typically found in high protein foods. So nature is smart in that way.
So smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I want to go back to what you said about hormones and zinc.
Salt. Did I say salt? Yeah.
You said sodium. So sodium, people tell me, well, isn't sodium going to raise my blood pressure? Like they're scared to do sodium. Yeah. Help us relook at sodium, because we have been brainwashed to think that sodium's the enemy. Why is sodium needed?
So sodium is needed because our heart sits in a bath of potassium and magnesium and sodium. And for it to relax, it needs magnesium. For it to contract, it needs that chemical reaction. And the hypertension studies were done a long time ago. And there's some evidence to show that it was funded because companies that were in the sugar industry realized that when you ate less salt, you crave sugar more, which is horrible and disgusting and true.
That's interesting. So if you eat less salt, you crave more sugar.
Yeah.
So I love salt and I don't crave sugar. And I'm curious if that's why.
Yeah, definitely. If you suddenly went even a couple days without salt at all in your diet, or a week even, you would start to think about either, you eat a really healthy diet. So maybe it would be fruits, like, oh, I really want those blueberries. I really want those, whatever it is. But yes, there's a big connection. And then, we've also seen that throughout time, people, the best, or people like throughout geography, time, cultures, so temperature changes, different climates is really what I'm trying to say. They fared best on somewhere around 4,000 milligrams of sodium a day. But they also weren't living in a super high-paced world. And maybe they weren't also, in some cases they were definitely intermittent fasting, right? But, and they weren't necessarily ideal, but I think of that as a minimum. And that is, in terms of hypertension, you're more likely to cause strain on your kidneys, which from an energy standpoint, one thing I always think about after studying chemical engineering is systems of things together. I think of delivery mechanisms, and that's probably why I took minerals and figured out a way to get them to better absorb in the body. Typically our problems that we have that we call problems throughout our life or society is either poor delivery, poor absorption, so delivery mechanisms, or it's just some inefficiency. So in the case of our, if our kidneys are having to work overtime, in the case they do when we have too little salt, they actually have to work harder to balance fluids in the body. Because it balances interstitial fluids in cells, right? And yeah, it's just really, really fascinating, because knowing what I know now about salt excretion in the body, our kidneys can, like the average set of kidneys can pump out over 3 pounds of salt per day, 3.2 pounds per salt per day. And yet we're concerned that 5,000 milligrams might be too much.
Right.
It isn't. It's also self-regulating. Mindy, you love salt, right? Have you ever eaten more salt when you're tired of salt, when your tongue was like, oh,
no, you don't,
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And my blood pressure has never been an issue, but hopefully just so our audience knows, they have now proven that that's more of a sugar issue. That's more of a bad fat issue. It's not a salt issue, but we still have doctors that are still looking at their patients and saying your blood pressure is high, get off salt. That is like an old school theory that doctor needs to get repatterned on. So, and they need to get up to speed. Let's go back. I want to make sure I don't miss this, because this was really interesting what you said about zinc being a precursor to progesterone and testosterone. Mm-hmm. So where my brain went on that is, I have this real strong philosophy that women over 40 need to start making changes to their lifestyle because the ovaries are starting to wind down. Progesterone and testosterone are two hormones that are pretty going to go down pretty quickly for women, and they're going to miss them. So should we get every woman over 40 supplementing with zinc so that we can get those hormones to the best they can be? I mean, they're never going back to the level they were at 30, but will we maximize their testosterone and progesterone production?
I want to say straight away, yes, just with the caveat that we test levels and we understand that, where their copper is. So maybe they took a bunch of iron supplementation when they actually needed copper. That being said, zinc is so key. Yes, I would want women supplementing, especially around that age, supplementing zinc, because it will help decisiveness. There's such a clear link. This is really fun. So I know you told me a lot of couples listen to the show, and something that you find in relationships is that there's this balance between zinc and copper. And copper can be thought of, because it regulates estrogen, as very feminine, and zinc as a good masculine element. It's like, so it's for men and women, we both need both. And let's say you have too much copper. Well, male or female, you'll have this ungroundedness, and taking more zinc can balance that. And we'll get into we can also talk about why the opposite there can be issues and you want to test. But if you have too much copper, you get really creative, but it's hard to follow through on things. So there's a ungroundedness, right?
Interesting.
And that's like pretty feminine. And then with no masculine, with this balance, with zinc is thought to be, guiding, sort of gathering, in terms of like bringing together things. So it's very, it helps with decisiveness. It helps with being analytical. Mm-hmm. So if you have a very analytical job and you suddenly start consuming lots of foods that are high in copper, which, people can search a list of that online really quickly. But, some of them are foods that we think of as being incredibly good. Mm-hmm. Now, the soil may or may not have them. So the particular exact foods that you're putting in your mouth, depending on where they're grown, whether or not they're organic, they may or may not have much of these. You should still obviously consider eating organic all the time if possible, because we want to get rid of all the junk and pesticides and whatnot. It's obvious, right? But that being said, the soil may still be depleted. So understanding your levels there and understanding this balance is really key. So, for example, let's say we have a woman that is very high in zinc, and she's in a relationship with a man that's really starting to eat, maybe supplementing copper through multivitamins or through, taking standalone minerals or eating a lot of copper-rich foods like avocado, cacao, things like that, dark chocolate, so things like that. So you start to see a lack of polarity in the relationship, and therefore a lack of attraction, because they're
interesting.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating?
See, so
I've never heard anyone talk about this.
Yeah, so we should talk about it more, because that'll be a whole nother episode. I have a theory that relationships start to fall apart as a woman is when she goes over 40. And the reason for that is her hormones are going off. And when her hormones go off, her personality changes. Now, if the woman understood, like I have spent so much time understanding my hormones that I'm able to articulate to my husband, like, hey, my progesterone's low right now. I'm just feeling a little anxious. This is what's going on. And so it's really been helpful in the relationship. And if the man understood as well what was going on, then he could end up being, or, any partner could end up saying like, oh, I get you're behaving like this because there's a deficiency. Now you've got me thinking we could take it one step deeper and we could say, well, you have a mineral deficiency. I have a mineral deficiency. Instead, I mean, think about how many relationships fall apart because of a lack of congruency. And what if it's a hormonal and mineral deficiency that's creating that lack of congruency?
Exactly. I mean, we're elemental. I'll just emphasize that one more time for people, like to really let that sink in. We are elemental. So is it important to test the elements in our makeup? I believe so.
I love this. And again, we should do a whole thing on minerals around cycle and compatibility. So we'll bring you back for that, and we can geek out on that.
Totally.
Let me finish up with a couple of things. One, how do people find you? How do they find the minerals? And you have a discount code for my audience, which I appreciate.
Yeah. So. Yeah, they can. You guys can use code Pelz, PELZ, right, at checkout for 15% off anything in your first order.
Thank you.
And just for being a listener of the show and listening this long, listening to us go on.
Yeah, you made it this long. Now you get a discount. So thank you. 15% off is very generous. So appreciate that.
For sure. Yeah. And the website is upgradedformulas.com. So upgraded with an ED and formulas, FORMULAS with an S on the end. You can find us on YouTube, I think /upgraded formulas. Just search that and it'll come up. And we put out some good videos there.
We'll include all the links in the notes so people have it. I have five rapid fire questions for you. What book or books have you read that have changed your life, that you just were like, this was a game changer. My life was never the same again?
Oh my God. The Tao Te Ching. It's spelled T-A-O. And then Te Ching. That was a great one. I remember reading that like on a train outside of, like, from Prague to Munich, and just having so many epiphanies. The One Thing was kind of like a business book, also a mindset book. Straight Line Leadership was a mindset book, business book, just that was just filled with like truth and like kind of hard truth, really.
Love it.
God, all the chemical engineering stuff.
I was going to say, you're going to give like some scientific book.
Yeah, if you really want to know, there was like this and that book of thermodynamics and fluid mechanics that was amazing. But then you also have to have like a minor in math to understand a lot of it. So,
maybe there'll be some people like that.
No, the approachable ones, the awesome ones. I love poetry by Rumi, Rumi.
Oh, yeah, Rumi.
Yeah, Rumi's great. And then got Hafez, Hafiz. The Gift by Hafez is just beautiful poetry. And this is calming. This is also health stuff too, right? Because anytime you calm your nervous system, maybe you wind down or you start your day with something soothing that reminds you that, hey, everything's going to be okay. Yeah. The more you start to trust yourself, the lower your burn rate is on nutrients too.
I love it. What I just learned from all those books is you're a deep thinker. You're a philosopher. That's And we're going to create, at the end of this season, we're going to create a massive book list of all of our guests and like what they've done. So the books they've recommended. Okay. If you could go back to your 20-year-old self and give him any advice, what would you say to him?
Oh my God. Two things. One, don't ever take Vyvanse or Adderall, no matter, even if a lot of people are doing it, even if you feel like you need it, drink, even coffee or tea would be better. Nootropics would be better. And that if one relationship doesn't work out, then another will. Just trust that the right one is coming. You're learning lessons along the way.
I love it. I love it. And okay, for our male audience, what are some of your like favorite hacks, whether for life or for health, that you think are like unique to men that men should be implementing?
Sure. So we have both a men's hormone health bundle that's my first thought where my mind goes first. I can think of other things too. We also, by the way, we have a women's hormone health bundle too. But that the upgraded memory is key for men. It's good for both men and women, but it's really, really key for men. All of those elements help memory. They also are synonymous with balanced hormones, particularly like testosterone, progesterone, things like that. Other things from men. God, there's a great book that I read that was incredible. It's The Masculine in Relationship is the best book on relationships from a male standpoint, like healthy masculine, that's still an anchor, a lighthouse in the world.
Love it.
Yeah, that book is incredible. I feel like anyone could read it and really appreciate the point of view. It's just written. Yeah, it's great.
Love it. Love it. But like I said, we're big book fans. So, okay. I know you're a big biohacker. So outside of minerals, what's your favorite biohacking tool?
Oh, I really like hyperbaric oxygen, getting in the tube. If you can do that, I just feel so lit up after.
Yep.
I like cold water before bed, not super cold. So I'll jump in Barton Springs here where I live. And
you live in Barton Springs and your name is Barton Scott.
Yeah, I know. Right?
That's kind of fitting. Strange.
So fitting. I literally can walk there from here. And hop in. So I'll do that maybe 2 hours before bed, let my body temp kind of, modulate and get some really deep sleep. Awesome. And then meditation. I meditate. Certainly every morning, a lot of times twice a day, and in the evening to sort of enjoy your evening post work. Is just a great reset. You're like more present, more thankful. You realize you achieved more than you thought you did. Things like that.
Yeah. I just spoke at the International Hyperbaric Association, their conference, and I talked about how we can time hyperbaric to hormones. I'm obsessed with timing everything to hormones now. That's why I want to chat with you offline about minerals. Okay. But anyways, just the stories of healing with hyperbaric is unbelievable. So last question. If you had one message for the world that you could get in everybody's brain, what would that message be?
Test, don't guess, for sure. By testing, it improves your intuition. And then I'd say as a bonus, just know that other people's actions aren't a reflection of you.